We're up to number 3 in our list of tight ends with first pick summer scouting consensus. Jack Endries, now of Texas. He was at Cal, and I haven't been following Cal football closely over the summer, but they lost one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in Fernando Mendoza. They lost one of the most productive tight ends in the country, in Jack Endries, who's now made his way to Texas. 6'4", 240 unofficially, 65 targets last season, 641 yards, 1 drop. That gets my attention. No fumbles. That also gets my attention. Played baseball and basketball in high school, and I just like to see how athletic these young men are when they get to college. And in terms of what I thought about him, I thought he was incredibly efficient in terms of stretching the field. They use him a lot in tunnel screens, and I thought he could take a 5-yard gain and make it into a 15-yard game. Create a separation down the field. If you watch that Miami touchdown, he's running away from defensive backs. So it feels like if you're catching passes from Arch Manning and a Steve Sarkisian offense, you're setting yourself up for success at the next level. So I understand why you might leave Berkeley to make your way to Austin. But I think this young man has a chance to put up some huge numbers in 2025 because of not only his, as you say, mom and dad God-given gifts, but also with the program he's now going to be a part of in the University of Texas.
Nah, he's another guy I'm kind of really interested to watch just because, like you said, I mean, I respect the production at Cal, considering. But like you said, when you go back and you're watching these guys and you see that Cal has a guy that we're talking about in the top 5 at quarterbacks, they have a guy that could have been in the argument as had top 5 in the running back category who's transferred. And now this guy, there was a ton of talent there. You just wonder why it didn't equal wins. Out there. And we see here on the graphic that picture they just showed was him pulling away in that Miami game. That's where you really saw this guy's speed. So I'm excited to see him in this Texas offense. Now I'm going to ask you a question for once, because I thought about this as I was watching him. How would you compare Jack Endries to Helm that just left Texas that the Titans drafted up in the 4th round?
So Helm played bigger. Helm may have weighed 250-ish or so. I know you liked Helm a lot as well. He ran a 4.8, but that's because he had turned his ankle and still ran anyway at the combine. I loved Helm coming out, and I thought he was incredibly important to making life easier for Quinn Ewers in the middle of the field. That Michigan game sticks out in my mind in particular. I like Helm a little better, Gunnar Helm a little better, and I thought he should have been a top 75 guy. Jack Endries, I think, has a chance to be a day 2 guy, but I know what Gunnar can do against the best players in the country. And look, we just talked about Endries being productive, but I want to see that week in and week out against SEC competition. That's a good question. Where were you on Helm versus Endries?
And so that was my point. My point, even asking that question for me was I saw Gunnar Helm as being better, better player than Endries. Right. And Gunnar Helm, whether it was due to the ankle injury or whatever the case may be, he went in the 4th round. He was a day 3 pick. So that's kind of where I started Jack Endries for me, is on day 3, being a day 3 pick. Now, again, he can help himself out tremendously in the fall. We know if you look at traditionally, and I hate to keep doing this to Arch because of the last name and the bloodlines, but if you look at every offense that his uncles who have also played the same position have been in, they have gotten great production out of their tight ends because they understand how to use the tight end position. And so you can expect him to probably put up equal numbers. But again, I saw Helm as being a little bit better. Saw Helm live against Vandy last year when Texas came to Vandy here in Nashville. So I like this kid. I do think his calling card to me and what he's going to be able to hang his hat on is his hands and his catch rates and his ability to extend and pluck outside of his frame. And I do think he gives good effort, in the run game, and he's not afraid to put his face on people. I just saw too many instances where he fell off or, allowed his guy to, engage and then make the play late in the down. Again, that's effort. That's technique. That's fundamentals, which he will get better at the next level. But I still saw Gunnar Helm was a little bit better than him.
Hey, let me ask you this, as someone who's, been in Atlanta and St. Louis/LA and San Francisco and, of course, Tennessee, are we seeing, and I mentioned Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay in particular, are we seeing more of a move 2, and 3 tight ends? And I'm asking this question because all these guys now weigh 235 to 245. And are you going to have to start drafting more Darnell Washington types and have more 12 and 13 personnel out there if you want to run certain plays? Or are you just going to have to be an F tight end who blocks, or, Puka Nakua, who can come downhill and earhole a defensive end? Like, what's the thought process there when you're in these draft meetings? I know it's based on the offense you want to run, but are we seeing a situation where we have to draft two different type of tight ends now because they look so different, whether one's in line or whether one's out in the slot?
I mean, the easiest way to say it is you have to find the Y tight end however you can get them, because they're rare. There's not very many of them hanging around. I want to say back. I'm gonna go back in the archive. A guy like Lee Smith, who came out of Marshall, I believe, he hung around the league for a long time just because he could block. And so the guys like Darnell Washington, who are big, who can block and can give you something in the passing game. I mean, shoot, look at Mercedes Lewis. Mercedes Lewis is my age, and he's still playing because he has a value as being a blocking tight end. And so you have to find these guys whichever way you can, and every offense is looking for one. You love to have one, but in the instance that you can't, you got to have multiple guys. You got to have, most teams carry 3 tight ends, and you have one on the practice squad, and usually you try to have one on the practice squad that you can develop into a blocking tight end. So you have that on your roster. But now, man, these offensive coordinators are so creative. They can find different ways to create angles for these tight ends and blocking on the move. You got receivers who aren't afraid to mix it up. I mean, hell, we used Trent Williams in the wing and put him in motion and had him do a kick-out block against Green Bay one year in the playoffs. So there's so many different creative ways to get the edge captured for you. Doesn't always have to come from the tight end position.